Let's do it. Jaya Radha Madhava Punjabi Hari. Jaya Radha Madhava Punjabi Hari. Jaya Radha Madhava Punjabi Hari. Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari. Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Vajjana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Vajjana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Punjabi Hari. Jaya Radha Madhava Punjabi Hari. Jai Mr. Pad Paramahansa Rudrakacharya Ashtotar the Sri Srimad Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Rudrakacharya Ashtotar the Sri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Samaveta Bhaktavinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glory to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Okay. Narayana Namaskritya Narang Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayet. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, we should offer our respectful obeisances unto Lord Narayan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, unto Narayan Rishi, the supremest human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author, and unto Srila Prabhupada, the translator, commentator, and our spiritual master. Nashtaprayesha Badreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatyuttama Shloke Bhakti Bhavati Naishtiki. By regular attendance in classes on Srimad Bhagavatam and by rendering devotional service to the pure devotee, all that is inauspicious within the heart is destroyed almost to nil, and loving devotion to the Supreme Lord is glorified in transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On the 16th day of November, 2020 in SanDiego, a reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And we are in the fourth canto entitled The Creation of the Fourth Order, chapter 28, Paranjan becomes a woman in the next life, text number 3. Kalakanyapi bubuje Puranjana param balat Yaya Vibhuta Purusha Sadyo Niksaratamiyat Kalakanyapi Bubuje Puranjana Purambalat Yaya Vibhuta Purusha Sadyo Niksaratamiyat Kalakanyapi Bubuje Puranjana Purambalat Yaya Vibhuta Purusha Sadyo Niksaratamiyat Kalakanyapi Bubuje Puranjana Purambalat Yaya Vibhuta Purusha Sadyo Niksaratamiyat Kalakanyapi Bubuje Puranjana Purambalat Yaya Vibhuta Purusha Sadyo Niksaratamiyat. Go ahead. Kalakanyapi Bubuje Puranjana Purambalat Yaya Vibhuta Purusha Sadyo Niksaratamiyat. Kalakanya, the daughter of Kala, Api also, Bubuje took possession of Puranjanapuram, the city of Puranjana, Balat by force, Yaya by whom, Abhibhutaha being overwhelmed, Purushaha a person, Sadyaha immediately, Niksaratam uselessness, Yat gets. Translation. Gradually Kalakanya, with the help of dangerous soldiers, attacked all the inhabitants of Puranjan city and thus rendered them useless for all purposes. Purport. At the fag end of life, when the invalidity of old age attacks a man, his body becomes useless for all purposes. Therefore, Vedic training dictates that when a man is in his boyhood, he should be trained in the process of brahmacharya. That is, he should be completely engaged in the service of the Lord and should not in any way associate with women. When the boy becomes a young man, he marries between the ages of 20 and 25. When he is married at the right age, he can immediately beget strong, healthy sons. Now, female descendants are increasing because young men are very weak sexually. A male child will be born if the husband is sexually stronger than the wife, but if the female is stronger, a female child will be born. Thus, it is essential to practice the system of brahmacharya if one wishes to beget a male child when one is married. When one reaches the age of 50, he should give up family life. At that time, one's child should be grown up so that the father can leave the family responsibilities to him. 1 second. Don't worry, it's not COVID. Okay. The husband and the wife may then go abroad to live a retired life and travel to different places of pilgrimage. When both the husband and wife lose their attachment for family and home, the wife returns home to live under the care of her grown-up children to remain aloof from family affairs. The husband then takes sannyas to render some service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is the perfect system of civilization. The human form of life is especially meant for God realization. If one is unable to take to the process of Krishna consciousness from the very beginning of life, he must be trained to accept these principles at the fag end of life. Unfortunately, there is no training even in childhood, nor can one give up his family life even at the end. This is the situation with the city of Puranjan, figuratively described in these verses. Om Jnana Timarandasya Jnanandana Shalakaya Chakshu Unmidatam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer humble obeisance unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. So, the previous chapter was more or less a prelude to what we're experiencing now, what we're seeing now, which is the actual attack of Jara, old age, and the soldiers of the king of the Yakshas. Was it the Yakshas? Yavanas, which is all kinds of diseases. And eventually the carefully guarded city of Puranjan will be overwhelmed, and he will pass out of his body and become a woman in the next life, which is the title of the chapter. So in this purport, Srila Prabhupada emphasizes how the whole central purpose of Vedic culture is different from what we call Western culture, modern culture. And that is recognizing that the mission of human life is to end this transmigration back again and again into different forms of life, sometimes subhuman forms, which are just unmitigated suffering. The whole idea that there can be some enjoyment, material enjoyment and security in material life is just a huge illusion. It's just, I always get so many things from Prabhupada's lectures that apply to whatever we're reading. And he's describing there, these are the famous lectures that he gave in Bombay in 74, I think, on Kapila Dev's teachings. It became a book, The Teachings of Lord Kapila Dev. Those lectures were made, transcribed, and much of it was included in that book. And Kapila Dev is teaching the same lesson as that other teachers in the Bhagavatam teach. And that is that it's impossible to actually get a position in this world of any lasting happiness or security. And this idea of the mirage, Prabhupada calls it a shadow, often means reflection. We've all experienced it here. You're living in this more or less a desert. You drive out a little bit, you see there's water on the road, and you know there's no water on the road. And you just keep driving and it'll disappear, right? But imagine if you were a thirsty animal in the desert, Prabhupada gives this example, and he sees the water out there, and he runs, and it keeps receding, and he gets there's no water, and he dies in the desert. It's a perfect analogy for what's going on with totally materialistic life. These are called by Prahlad Durashya Bahirartamanina. That for those, and this set of 3 verses, oftentimes there's these little lessons included in the Bhagavatam, distinct lessons. And these 3 verses, which of course he's trying to teach his father, Hiranyakashipu, who's not a very good student, but he's teaching all of us. So he starts out, the father wants to know, where do you get your power from? Because he's just resisted. Imagine how strong you have to be. All of these ways of killing, being boiled in oil, I would expire within the first half second, But he's meditating so intensely on Krishna. He is the acharya, or the exemplar, for remembrance. That's another thing I heard this morning. Prabhupada was running through. Each of the 9 processes has an exemplar. For hearing, of course, Parikit, for chanting is Shukadev, for remembering is Prahlad. I won't go through all 9 of them. So that means that he's completely absorbed, in meditating and being the mind completely absorbed. And in that meditation, he was protected by Krishna. Well, Sringadev, he's actually meditating on Krishna. And nothing could pierce the delicate body of a 5-year-old. Big spears, they come at him, and somehow then they throw him off the hill and crushed by the elephant, poisoned, whatever you can imagine, whatever they had. It wasn't that he was just resisting it, it's that he was unfazed by it. Now that's scary, for his father, you can imagine, who's powerful, So where do you get your power from? From the same place you do. Best of the demons, Prabhupada insists he never called him father. From Krishna, from God, we're just enraged. Hiranyakashipu more. But then he assured Hiranyakashipu, don't worry, you'll never be Krishna conscious. That's the first verse. Matir na Krishne Your mind will not be on Krishna. Matinda Krishna padatak svatova mito vipadyete grihavartanam. One can describe materialists such as Hiranyakashipu, ideal, as having taken a strong vow to try to enjoy materialistic family life. That's grihavartanam. So such a person cannot place his mind on Krishna, either by his own efforts or by other efforts or meeting in congresses like that. Why? Adhanta gobhir, vishatanta misram. Because the senses are out of control, and because of that, one enters deeper and deeper into darkness, which means illusion and ignorance. Adhanta gobhir, vishatanta misram, and then we can rate this line. As soon as I heard it, I said, yeah, I can relate to that. Punok punas charvata charvananam. Again and again, chewing what has already been chewed. Isn't that what material life is? Some other little, variety, some video or something you haven't seen yet, But it's ultimately the same stuff, that the sex and the violence, whatever it is, And the different kinds of snacks. I always refer to this because sometimes I go to Ralph's. I go to get one thing and one thing only, and that is kale. They have some really good organic kale over there. But sometimes I need to use the bathroom, so I go wandering, down one of the alleys in there, the aisles, and there's unlimited snacks on either side. Another aisle is unlimited soft drinks and things, to allure you. Think, oh yeah, let me try that one. I haven't tried that one yet, Some variety of Doritos, whatever it is. And so, in that illusion, in that mood of trying to enjoy varieties of things that you basically enjoyed, there's no question of transcendental knowledge. Krishna explains so clearly at the end of the 3rd chapter. Lust, material desire, covers your innate knowledge. Avritam jnanametana jnananitavairana. So this is the nature of everybody, from childhood, through adolescence, and youthhood, and middle age, old age. There's all different varieties. And while you're doing that, of course, the vehicle for that is the body. Right, the senses have to be in good order, and when you're young, all the senses are powerful, you can enjoy it in all kinds of ways, But it's again and again chewing what has been chewed. And so there's no question of even considering the ultimate questions that we're meant to ask as human beings. Why is there any suffering? Who am I? Who am I? Why am I suffering? Sanatana asked that question. Where did everything come from? Atato Brahma Jigyasa. That's what Atato Brahma Jigyasa means. What is the source of everything that I see, myself included? And then the answer is Brahman. Atato Brahman Jigyasa. And that Janma Jasya Yataha, that which gives, that's the beginning, So those questions don't arise. And in that mood, one tries to enjoy, like anything. And then the next verse is probably we quote most often amongst the 3. Natevadu Svartakatimi Vishnum. Now this introduces this idea of the Svartakatim. Prabhu, I'm sorry. Yeah. Bhadra Maharaj is kind of clamping down on us. So the Svartakatim, very important phrase. Swa-artagatim. So Swa refers to the soul in this case. Because we have all kinds of artas, which we'll describe in the next line. But they pertain to the body, or maybe the mind, or the intelligence, but never the soul. The soul is just a witness in the conditioned life completely. So it says, Svartakatim hi Vishnum. Such a soul, they, who you just described previous verse, Vidu, they don't know that the real goal of their soul, their ultimate goal is Vishnu, Krishna. And all that implies. Krishna Loka, the pastimes, the relationships, the eternal life. They don't know that. So what do they have as a goal? Durashaya bahirartamaninath means external goals dictated by the conditioned mind and the senses that have been infected with lust and kama. These are giving us all kinds of messages. We all know you grow up, right? You're an innocent little boy playing here and there, and you get to be 12, 13, 14. Suddenly there's a whole new set of desires that are coming up from the body. Now Prabhupada deals with that in the purport. He said, that's what brahmacharya is for. In order to preserve this central mission of life, which was escape from the dictates of the desires that infect or invade the senses, mind, and intelligence, one needs training from childhood. Prahlada's his pastimes are so centered on that in many cases, where he's teaching his friends, And he himself was trained even within the womb. But the Vedic culture is, Varnashram, is geared to that. Because after all, is that who are these brahmacharis? Some of them will, are sons of kings, some of the sons of Brahmins, whatever. But they all need training in self-control. Because that's what keeps a civilization from going to the dogs, from degrading into what we see today. Is that you have a core of men who are trained and who know the goal of life. Yes, to get married. Yes, to have children. But there's a limit to it. There's restriction. Prabhupada says all these rules and regulations, Manusimhita, Bhagavatam, all of that. It's meant to give us restriction. It doesn't outlaw sex, obviously. That's a human function. And Prabhupada did one lecture. He says, after all, Ramanujacharya, Madhvacharya, Bhaktisiddhanta, all these great acharyas, they were born from women. In other words, everyone is somebody's child, so that has to go on. But it needs to be, it has its place, its limitation, and understand the danger of allowing that to become your goal in life, which is just animal life. So brahmacharya is here. Prabhupada outlines the ideal here. Whether the boy is trained, doesn't matter who you are, you become a menial servant of the guru. Whether you're a king's son or a Vaishya's son, you can also get trained, or especially Kshatriya and Brahmin son. You get the same training, which begins with humility, brahmacharya, celibacy, service to the guru, and hearing, and being trained in the transcendental knowledge. And then some will say, I don't want, I want to do Naisika brahmachari. That's quite a commitment, Of course, we know Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur did that. And 4 Kumaras, the original Naisika brahmacharis, which greatly angered his father. They didn't want to have children. That's another story. So then he said, okay, you get married at a young age, and then, you're in your flush of youth, so you'll have strong children, especially sons. Prabhupada talks here. And there's a time limit. It's not, and even within marriage, there are limits on sex indulgence. That can only be there when you are cultivating Krishna consciousness and getting a higher taste. And both partners are very committed to spiritual life. And it becomes an ashram, a grahastha ashram, rather than just a Griyameti life. So that's the ideal. And then ideally at 50, one, it moves toward renunciation. I think that's what Vanaprastha is. Then the man and the wife go, to different places of pilgrimage. There's no sex anymore. But they're partners. And then Prabhupada says they go abroad, it means they travel. Travel different places, when both the husband and wife lose their attachment to family and home. So in other words, the wife is not clinging on. She understands, okay, there's protection for her back home. But she's also become spiritually advanced in this case. And the husband then takes sannyas and, he's fully committed and preaches like that. That's the ideal. Perfect system of civilization. The human form of life is especially meant for God realization. I mean, how many times do we read that in Prabhupada's books? That has to be pounded in, and it changes everything. When you understand what the goal of life is, and you accept it, then all of your calculations of what's important and what's not important, what's good and what's bad, are adjusted, are changed radically. So that's what real civilization is. Otherwise, a civilization just bent on exaggerating different forms of sense gratification is hellish. It's demonic. So here we are in that, and we can say, what is the origin of this whole COVID thing, which is a wake-up call. It should be a wake-up call for everybody in the world. Who doesn't know about it? Everyone knows about it. It's just, rampant meat eating and degradation, and that's allowed this thing to manifest. It's a universal sinful reaction, really, for all of the stuff that's going on. But whatever, that's our life now, and devotees have to deal with it. I mean, I'll just tell you my experience last night, realizing how difficult this is going to be to wear masks and how, while leading a kirtan. I said, I'm going to do it. Well, I had, with the percentage of carbon dioxide inside my lungs got elevated. And I was sitting there, and eventually I had to leave and go early and get back home and lie down a little bit, you know. So that's, we'll have to figure that out. But there's also, you know, we have to be aware, just like everything depends on your consciousness, right? So the people who are you know, just flaunting this thing, they're more likely to get sick, right? No masks, no distance, you know, and so similarly, those who have no idea what the goal of life is or how to achieve it, sadhya sadhana, then they're sure to be victimized by the material energy. They're just, it's just they're in the middle, you know, of the standard illusory set of values and aspirations that keep one bound here. It's all a very subtle thing. You know, the mind and the intelligence and your ideology and what you've been trained in, that determines what you consider is important and what you strive for. It's such a key thing. It's a consciousness. And so this Bhagavatam is our salvation, isn't it? The Srimad Bhagavatam, what is that verse? It says, Arajo Bhagavan Vrajeshatana Yastadhama Vrindavanam. This is a verse in the Chaitanya Manjushah, which I'm not familiar with, maybe you know. But it's a verses about Lord Chaitanya, and this one, I forget who wrote it, gives a summary of his teaching. So, Arajo Bhagavan. Okay, one should worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead. You know, who's that? Vrajeshatanya, the son of the king of Braja. Okay, there's no question, it's Krishna. You know, and also one should worship his Dhamma, which is equally, you know, transcendental and purifying and sacred. As we were hearing so much beautiful class yesterday, both morning and evening, about Govardhan Hill, you know. The Dham is so necessary, and so such a refuge, you know, for Vaishnava. Just going there, and you know, and traveling around as someone who knows places, you can become Krishna conscious. So his Dham is also worshipable, along with his Dham. How should one worship? Ramya Kachadupasana Vrajavadu Bhagena Yakalpita. The highest ideal is in the mood of the gopis. You know, completely selfless and simply desiring Krishna's pleasure. That's what Anyabhilasha Dashunyam is all about, you know. So, okay, you say that, what's the evidence? Srimad Bhagavatam Pramanam Amalam. The Srimad Bhagavatam is the supreme pure evidence for all this knowledge that he's just giving. Okay, what's the goal of it all? Prema Pumarto Mahan. That's a very nicely constructed verse. Human prema is the ultimate arta. We began by speaking of what is this, right? Nadevidu svarta katimi vishan. This word arta is so important. It comes up again and again. It means something of value in this most generic form. It often means money, dharma, arta, kama, moksha, economic development. But in the case, in context like this, pumarta, pum is short for pungsa, means human being. The ultimate goal, mahan arta, is prema, is love for Krishna. Everything else is included in there. Whatever happiness you're aspiring for, whatever security you're aspiring for, love, ultimate love. It is everything that we're trying to find in this world, which is just a pale reflection or, a mirage, right? What do people really want? Well, you want a loving relationship, and you want a situation of happiness. You don't want danger. That's what this fear is all about, right? Who is fear? Is that the daughter of Kalakanya? Or the brother? Yeah, the brother married. Fear personified. So that's always there in material life, right? I mean, the sense gratification of what serves in one way is kind of a drug to let you forget the fear temporarily, but then it comes back, right? But then you're back in the situation where you're living in this delicate body. Do I have enough money to pay the rent? What's that old enemy is threatening me? What do I have this pain in my? There's a million ways the threefold miseries can attack you, and even if they're not attacking you right now, they might attack you. That's the aspect. That's just the nature of material life, because you're putting all your investment and your hopes in this fragile material body. It's just this delicate little machine, right? What is it? Yantra Rudani Maya. that's made of the material energy and given to you by the material energy to wander around and, this is your cell for this lifetime. Try to enjoy it, And so you try to enjoy different distractions, so you forget that you're really in prison, that you're doomed. Everyone is doomed. They're on death row. Is death row in a prison really a happy place? No, everybody's, oh my God, I've only got 1 month and 2 days and 7 minutes left. You can imagine, So this is but Maya is so skilled to cast her spell. And the most amazing thing, people are living as if they'll never die. Especially young, strong, I like to tell this story. I don't think you've heard this one. You remember, Vijay, back in Miami. Just before I came, they had built that boardwalk. It was like a whole construction thing. They told me it cost billions of dollars. So this visual, at Miami Beach. Miami Beach is a place where a lot of people, especially have some money, they try to retire there. There's all these big hotels, and mostly a lot of old people live there, and they walk on the beach. So they're walking on the beach. It's hard to walk on the beach, right on the beach. So they built this boardwalk where they can walk back and forth, So Miami is also a destination for wealthy South Americans. During their winter, it's warmer up north, So we get these Brazilians come every year. Remember the young Brazilians? They would play. We had the volleyball court set up on there. They would set up a volleyball, net. And so you had these young, wealthy, upper crust Brazilian young guys who would come and play volleyball on the beach. And then just like 20 feet away, 30 feet away, you got the old codgers, inching along on the newly made boardwalk. So maybe the old people looking at it, I used to be like that one time. But the young people are not generally thinking, I'm going to be like that sometime. They're in the throes of the game and the enjoyment and the whole thing, And so I remember like that when I was 18, 19, I'm constitutionally 19, 18, maybe 20, And there's old people, right? I'm always young and they're going to be always old. That's a complete illusion. But you live like that. You never think, well, I'm going to be old someday, and die. So what, and to really inquire from the right source, is there a solution to that problem? Not some petty problem having to do with adjusting the material energy. That's the big illusion. So that's how to get out of that illusion. That's the training from the guru, from the shastra, from the Amnaya. Amnaya means the truth coming down from Krishna to Brahma, or the other sampradayas, and down to qualified teachers who are practicing and who have realized, and finally coming down to us so we can be enlightened. Just like Arjuna, or just like all, those who give examples. He was trying to figure it all out himself. He was in this horrible dilemma. Here's the people I love and respect, and they're on the other side, and I'm going to have to kill them. And I've got all these people on my side also who I love and respect. And now I'm in the middle of this war. Who cares about the kingdom? He had this whole argument based on the Vedas, how I'll kill all these men, the women will become unprotected, will be Varna Sankara, I'll be responsible, there'll be no Shraddha offerings, and forget it, let me go to the forest. But he didn't just leave the chariot and go off. He sat down and he lamenting, and then he surrendered to Krishna as guru. They were friends, he's exalted, Krishna covered him, that. But it's to teach us, is that we come in human life, we're confronted with the fact that we can never be happy here for any length of time. We can't get what we want because we're spirit souls. With Satchitananda, we are eternal, and we have as our birthright eternal happiness because we're part and parcel of Krishna. Anandamaya Abhyasat. He's always blissful, right? So, but we're not, We're just the opposite. Satchitananda, we're asat, we're certainly not eternal. Full of knowledge, yeah, maybe a little tiny bit, there's a million things we don't know. And then certainly not full of ananda. Achit, asat, achit, nirananda. So how do we get back to our original nature? That should be our question. And the only source of is this transcendental knowledge Srila Prabhupada has worked so hard to give us, and he worked so hard to set up an environment such as these temples, which are places of pilgrimage, where the atmosphere is conducive to hearing the knowledge and practicing what you hear. What a great gift. Prabhupada sacrificed his life to give these temples all over the world. That was the mission of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. How is his name going to be heard all over the world? Only if devotees are all over the world. And they have to be cultivated. And they, this was Prabhupada's eternal example of a wonderful compassion and sacrifice for others, for all of us, and so he's the most dear. He's obviously the most dear to Lord Chaitanya, and we can also become dear by emulating in our own little way, minuscule way, the same mood, which is to become experienced, become knowledgeable by doing what we're doing, studying, hearing, and practicing. The practice of what you hear, what you learn, solidifies the knowledge, because you experience the reality of it. Another verse Prabhupada would always love to quote, Bhakti Padeshanubhavavadakta Anyachacha. He would quote into the beginning of the second line. This is the nature of bhakti. This is describing someone who's actually surrendered, and it's a famous verse describing experiencing bhakti rasa with taking a good meal after a fast when you're hungry. You get tushti, pushti, chidabhaya. You get satisfaction, nourishment for the soul, and vairagya. So, how does that come? By surrender and service, inquiry, the things you need for the guru, and putting the knowledge into practice. So the verse we're studying here, this whole allegory. I remember, you remember, Raj, when these new books would come out, but devotees would all read them, and it would have a profound effect on the society. This book, with all that we've read so far, and the story of Dhruva, this is the fourth canto. They're so rich, and the Song of Shiva, and Prithu, of course, and now we're reading this out. Devotees could see, this is reality. You're in a youthful body. You forget all about old age and disease. You try to enjoy, but gradually time takes its toll, and for devotees, that old age is kind of a, if you understand it, yes, this is, the notice is here. So it's an advantage in a way, because the senses are not so strong, and they're pulling you here and there. And if you're determined to still engage and to hear and chant and use the time wisely, it can be a very ecstatic time, Oftentimes, if you've worked, throughout your life, supposed to, retire, you have more time, You're like, you have more time now, and we can see the effect. The class is so saturated with bhakti. We're very fortunate. And Vijay, Prabhu, this is, how can there be a silver lining of this COVID-19 cloud, But I think that this is, we would have never had Vijay come here and live here. There's a whole saga. He calls me up from Chicago. Dravida, I need a place to stay. They won't let me stay here. So we try to get him in Mukunda's place. Mukunda, you got a place you're living in. What was it like? Well, there's no electricity, no running water. So that didn't work out. Then you were able to stay at what's his name? Maheshwar's place. Yeah. Anyway, so we should just take advantage of this association of these great souls. And become determined, make their life successful. Doesn't matter how long we have to live. This COVID thing, who knows what's going to happen. Not only that, but just climate change. Everything is threatening. But even just ordinary times, material energy does that. Eventually wears out your ability to stay in this particular body, in this particular place. So Krishna consciousness means avyarta kaladvam. Never wasting a second. Living as if, this might be the day. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Let me hear that. Hare Krishna, 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And in this way, fulfilling the mission of Srila Prabhupada, he wanted to take people back to Godhead. So let's make a determination to try as hard as we can and take as many people as we can back with us. Thank you for listening. Schedule's a little tighter. Any questions, comments, or criticisms? I'm completely open to all.
Thank you for a wonderful class.
Glory to Prabhupada.
On the one hand, we say it's material life absorption and sense gratification that causes people to be so afraid.
Yeah.
And then we see devotees that are afraid. So how are we supposed to understand that?
Well, what are they afraid of, though? I mean,
well, COVID is the elephant in the room.
Yeah. Some devotees are afraid of, losing devotee association, But yeah, you're right. Well, we're still in a shower, I mean, that's a test. These struggles are a test. Just like we see Maharaj, I've been here 31 years, and he's had this serious diabetes. But amazingly, he said, it was just a short time ago, how actually it's a good thing. He said that about his condition. He said that. And that's the mood of our great acharyas, like Kunti Devi and others, to see every reversal as a lesson from Krishna. As either he's giving us just a token of our karma, you can see it that way, or he's teaching us to be, he's showing us how this is the nature of the material energy, and we have to use every moment for Krishna and pray as hard as we can to not, lose our way. And Kunti, said it, Vibadak Satadakshashvat. But we're not all on that level. So certainly, we can also be afraid, but we can also experience how that fear can be dissipated by strong Krishna consciousness. If you're not paralyzed by the fear, hopefully, you're still doing your sadhana and so forth, but you can feel how, okay, by intensifying my devotion, by really getting into the kirtans, I can feel how my anxiety, my despair, my fears is being lessened. So that's the way I would see that. But it's not like the paralyzing, fear of completely ignorance.
I really appreciate you. Basically, you said, no, it's not the standard. Actually, we're in the shower and we haven't achieved the standard. Many of us haven't achieved the standard. And if anything, we want to be leaning towards, not away from the standard.
Of course.
And of course is easily said.
But I know, not easily done.
Trying to keep it real, as they say here. Yeah. So we should remember, because disease is as inevitable as death or old age.
Yes, absolutely.
It is a complete illusion to think that nobody's going to get sick here. Let's just say a year. Yeah. Every year we get sickness come.
I know.
Everybody gets it. Not everybody, but you get your turn at whenever it's supposed to come. So will we be able to remember your good counsel when one or more of us get sick, that actually this is Krishna's arrangement and it's for a purpose. And the purpose from him is always that he loves us and he's trying to get us on the fast track to totally desiring to be on the standard of, I want to surrender to you, please use me, please take me, let me serve.
Yeah.
That comes to mind.
Yes. There's all kinds of levels that this could be explored. And Vijay is going to give us another angle. Or maybe the same one in a different way.
There was a test. Is it on? No.
Is it green?
There's an instance where Prabhupada was on a morning walk in Vrindavan, and one devotee he was late for the morning walk, so he was running up to catch up with the morning walk, and he was barefoot. He was kind of hobbling along, and Prabhupada said, well, "Where's your shoes? Isn't it painful?" "Prabhupada, when I'm with you, I don't feel any pain." Prabhupada said, "Don't be foolish." So this COVID thing, it is real. May not be as big as it is. Maybe smaller. Who knows? Maybe bigger. We don't know, but it's definitely real. Mm-hmm. Nityananda now in Dallas, and
Hungary farm.
Hungary, and this devotee just told me Bhagavat Kinchana's wife. What's her name?
Oh, I don't know. You mean in L.A.?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know the devotees.
Anyway, she had a friend that just passed away recently, COVID.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's happening. So we shouldn't be foolish. I mean,
Cavalier.
It's a real thing. So yeah, it's just we had to be careful. You know,
Yeah.
got to be careful.
Yeah, and you know the whole mood. I mean, how long has it been? 8 months or so? It's been about 8 months. And you know, when it first hit, and they had a lockdown and everything, you know, and you know, I felt, well, I'm pretty fortunate. My life hasn't changed much. I've always been working at home, and I can go to the temple. I'm still going to the temple. But you could sense a change in the atmosphere. You know, there was a lot of fear. Yeah, yeah, just you know, in the ether kind of. You know, I mean, it was really heavy. You were still traveling, and it was, you know, there's hardly anyone on the street. You know, Saturday night. Even now, it's starting to get like that again. Yeah, and so, you know, that also affects you. You know, you realize, well, there's a different atmosphere out there now. Just like here, the standard for, you know, all the years I've been here is enjoyment. When I first came, it's a party town. You know, the specific part of SanDiego. No kids. There was only one kid around, and that was Mohan Vilas's wonderful little girl who was growing up, you know. And so I, you know, come to Mangalartik, standard, you know, Saturday morning and Sunday morning. You know, there was a Saturday nights, Friday night. So they'd still be partying across the street, you know. And then all I was thinking is, yeah, because when I walk back, you know, they'll all be crashed. You know, it's the old thing of the day and the night, you know, the reverse. So that was the mood, you know. This is like the last place you would really, I mean, if you're trying to think of it, where you'd started Brahmacharya Ashram, like 2 blocks from a Southern California beach, you know. But there it was, and we had brahmacharis. It shows the power of Krishna consciousness, even though, you know. But this is different. You know, everybody has this, the threat of death is there. But you can see that, well, now, you know, all right, we've turned the corner or whatever, you know, and then so they got back to, but now suddenly there's a whole surge, and so it's starting to get more like that. So the point I'm making is that we're supposed to always think like that, in a sense. That's what this is for, is that there's no security here. There's no security. It can come, any of the 3 miseries can get you. You know, the Adidaivik, Adibhautik, Adhyatmik. So therefore, we need to cling to Krishna's lotus feet as tightly as possible, and cling to the instructions of the spiritual master. This is the real boat that take us over. There's so many boats in the Bhagavatam. Nidehamadyam sulabam sudurlabam plavam sukalpam gurukar hadaram mayanukuldena nabastiter puman bhavabdim natadetsa atmaha. This is when Krishna speaks this verse into Uddhava. It says the human form of life, nirdeham, human form of body, is a wonderful boat to cross over the ocean of birth and death. Sulabam, sudurlabam. Now it's a play on words because they're opposite words. Sulabam and sudurlabam. So sulabam means you automatically get it. In other words, every species, you automatically get a human form of life. But sudurlabha means it's rare amongst the species, and certainly rare to have a civilized form that's, you know, would even think of these things. So sulabham, plavam's a very nicely constructed boat. But you need a captain. Guru Karnadaram. Karnadara, I'm not sure where the origin of that word is, but that means captain. The spiritual master is a captain. But you need favorable winds. It's not a motorboat. It's not a nuclear submarine. It's, you know, one of those old sailboats. Favorable winds. Mayanukulena dabasviter. The words I speak, the Vedas, this is all favorable. So everything, you got the good boat, you got the good captain, you got the, you know, favorable winds. Puman bhavabdim natadet sa'atmaha. The one who does not cross over this ocean of birth and death, bhavabdim, the ocean of birth, is atmaha, is committing spiritual suicide. You know. So that's it. That, you know, Prabhupada would quote that verse a lot. So let's feel the urgency. You know, we're not on a cruise ship here. We're on a serious try a trip across birth and death, and we can actually make it if we use the facility that we've been given. We've been given the guru, the shastra, and we have the human form of life. So that, these kind of experiences, or anything that you experience, like, preaching at Sankirtan, I'm sure there's so many instances where there have been dangers and opposition and things like that. I know that. That just strengthens you. If you continue your determination to preach under any, that's a glorious position to be in. So all of us can become determined. And in this way, even though it's such a horrible thing going on, it becomes an invaluable lesson for us. For that, hey, I got to be serious. Doesn't matter how old I am or where I am. All right, I got to end. I got to go do my stuff. I got to do things. All glory to Srila Prabhupada. Hari Hari Bol.